And good afternoon, producer Susan. How are you doing this fine? Is it summer yet, or are we still spring?
We're still in spring, technically.
All right. How many times have you had to cut your grass?
I mowed it yesterday and it was like mowing a hayfield.
Well, hopefully you've got a good lawnmower.
I got a new one, gas
You got a
powered.
gas, but no battery ones for you, huh? All
Nope.
right. Well, let's tell people what day it is and what we're going to talk about. Today's May the 7th. It's a Tuesday. Situation with Jerzee Joe. It's news and perspective you won't hear on TV, and I'm actually going to tell you some things, some perspective. You may have heard some things on TV, but I'm going to tell you the rest of the story, what they didn't tell you. Our quote of the week is from Golda Meir. Do you know who Golda Meir was?
I've heard that name.
She was the first female prime minister of Israel, and
Oh, yeah.
she probably died before you were born. So, her quote is on the difficulty of trying to negotiate a peace with a sworn enemy, and I think it's
Hmm.
very, very relevant given the situation with Hamas today. Um, and our stupidest thing I've heard all week, we'll tell you about a Pennsylvania man who was arrested for carrying a gun in his own house.
Yeah,
Have you heard about that one?
I did. So much for our castle law.
Well, actually, the castle law actually did protect him, but it didn't on one, but it didn't protect him on the other. So we'll tell you about that, how that worked. In a close runner-up, we'll tell you how many mistakes the White House says President Biden has made while speaking so far this year. They actually came out and said, yes, we've had to make some corrections to things the president has said between January 1 and April 24th. And the list is an incredibly long list. We'll tell you how many mistakes the White House has had to correct uh, for things President Biden has said this year. It's really a stunning number. There's been a lot of talk about the U.S. subsidizing all these new chip manufacturing plants, so we're not going to be
Hmm.
dependent on China and Taiwan on for microchips. You're
Hmm.
aware of that, right?
Yep, yep.
Well, Intel's been trying to build chips in Arizona for the past couple of years. We'll tell you the staggering amount of money that Intel has been losing on its efforts to produce microchips in this country. The numbers are staggering. In our Science Minute, we'll tell you which bird is the highest flying bird in the world and how high it can fly. And as a pilot, I was blown away by this number. Are you aware of which bird that is and how high they fly?
No.
Well, you're going to be stunned when I tell you how high this bird can fly. Um, Here's the perspective. You may have heard there was a news story earlier in the week that there's been, quote, a alarming increase in the number of school shootings in this country. And I'm shaking my head. What the hell are they talking about? Alarming increase in school shootings? Because I pay attention to these things. I even have a database. I'm going back. The last school shooting in this country of any note. Do you know when the last school shooting in this country took place?
Uh, well, the last one I remember on the news was I think the one in Uvalde, Texas, but I'm sure there was probably one since
No, there was
then.
one more. It was down in the Covenant School in Tennessee,
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but that was over a year ago. And they're
Hmm.
saying there's, quote, been an alarming. Well, if you've gone 13 months without one school shooting,
Hmm.
how are you reporting that there's been an alarming increase in school shootings? And we'll take you into some of the data.
Because those certainly do make the news when there is
Right.
a shooting.
But so that's why I'm scratching my head. So I went and dug into the numbers. I'm saying, what the hell are they talking about? Alarming increase when there's been none of note in 13 months. Um, have you ever done an ocean cruise?
Cruises are not my thing.
Well, I don't know.
I don't want to be on a floating hotel.
There's a new one. This may change your mind. This fall, there's going to be a all nude cruise leaving an 11-day nudist cruise leaving out of Florida. We'll tell you about that one. And we've talked about the California bullet train saga for
Yep.
a couple of times, right? Well, there
Yep.
was a new release this week, and it's really an embarrassment for the state of California. What they've announced, what they've spent $9 billion on. And remember the Billy Joel song "Moving Out"? He says, "And is that what you get for your money?"
Yep.
Remember that line? Is
Yep.
that all you get for your money? Well, we'll tell you what the state of California has gotten for $9 billion. And we have a little change of pace. Our taxpayer relief shot is normally a good guy or a good woman with a gun, shooting the bad guy, right? Well,
Hmm.
this week, we had an incident out of Polk County, Florida, where the sheriff of Polk County, Florida, is our own very own Sheriff Grady Judd.
Mhm.
And Sheriff Grady Judd recounts an incident that resulted in the death of a dangerous and violent criminal. And the way he places it was just so good, even though it wasn't a civilian killing a thug. The way he describes this incident was just too good not to play for you. Anyway, so you think we can fit this all in?
That sounds like an awful lot.
All right. So here's Golda Meir, and think about how relevant this is today. This is the first female prime minister of Israel. She said, "You cannot negotiate a peace with someone who has come to kill you."
Mhm.
And by the way, Hamas to this day, they open their morning prayers with death to America and death to Israel. So how do you negotiate a peace with someone who starts their day saying, death to you and your country?
Yeah,
How do you do that?
exactly.
How do you do that? So again, so one more time, you cannot negotiate a peace with someone who has come to kill you. And I think that was as true 40 years ago when she said it the first time, and it's still true today.
Mhm.
All
Yep.
right. So let's talk about this Pennsylvania man. By the way, so here's the scenario. 70-year-old guy, he's 70, he's an old guy. He's got a rental house, and for whatever reason, afraid of burglary or doing some renovations, he was spending the night in his rental house. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, he's awoken by somebody trying to break into the house. Well, he has his gun with him, and when the guy comes into the house, broke through the window, broke through the door, the 70-year-old guy shoots and wounds him, doesn't kill him, shoots and wounds him. And the police come and they take the guy away, they into the hospital in handcuffs. And because of the castle doctrine that you mentioned, he
Mhm.
was not charged with assault with a deadly weapon because he had the perfectly legal right to shoot this guy entering his castle. But you know what the district attorney uh, charged him with?
What?
Illegal possession of a firearm. Apparently, in Pennsylvania, if
In
you
his
don't
own
have,
house.
well, here's the thing: the way the law is written in Pennsylvania, if you don't have a concealed carry permit, you cannot carry a gun with you in any place other than your primary abode or your place of business. And since this rental house was not his primary abode
But
or
a
his
place of
business,
business.
it wasn't, or it was not
But it's
his.
a rental income property, therefore
Well,
making it a place of business.
well, the district attorney doesn't agree with you. So that's why I think it's so stupid. And by the way, if this guy gets a jury trial, I think the jury will say,
Yeah.
you're joking. But the district, that's why I think it's so stupid. The district attorney, and again, you'd have to interpret, is a rental property a place of business? So you're not there. I think the intent of the legislature was clear. If you run a liquor store, you run a convenience store, a
Yeah.
gas station, that's a place of business. But a rental property is not a place of business. You're not there doing business on a regular basis. So I think that was the intent of the
I
register.
see it as an income producing property.
Yes, but it is not a business where you
But I
are.
think that's also them splitting hairs on the law. That's
Right.
interesting. I didn't know that was a thing. I fortunately do have a
Yeah,
carry
right.
permit in the state of Pennsylvania, but
Right.
I
So you could carry it anywhere, but again, the law says primary abode or place of business. So again, I think it was stupid for the district attorney to charge the guy to begin with. And I think if this goes to a jury trial, they'll just, not guilty.
yeah,
But what a stupid picayune thing to charge this guy.
yeah.
The guy's 70 years old, alone in a house.
And he
Would
was
you
defending himself.
He was defending himself, and you're going to charge him because he took a gun with him into a
Yeah.
deserted house? Oh, give me a freaking break. All right. Here's our runner-up. So as you know, President Biden, has since between January 1 and April 24th, he's been on talk shows, he's given speeches, he's given press interviews, and he says a lot of things. You see him on the nightly news, as he's walking to the helicopter and somebody asks him a question and he shoots back an answer. Well, between January 1 and April 24th, if you check your calendar, that was 114 days.
Mhm.
The White House came out with a list of corrections and clarifications regarding things he said in those 114 days. Do you know how many corrections and clarifications the White House published for in
I'm
those
gonna say at least they gotta say at least one a day on average.
148 errors in 114 days? Now, this is the guy that has, by the way, and those errors do not include his proven false claims like he's talked about, well, I used to drive a big rig, or I finished in the top half of my law school class, or I got arrested during a protest march in Alabama, or his tale about talking to a conductor on Amtrak who had been dead for 10 years during the time period where Biden claimed he was having conversation with this Amtrak conductor. So it doesn't include any of those whopping, tall tales that it includes not. These are simply things he said that are incorrect. Now, is it scary that this guy has the nuclear launch codes?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and again, and you can look this up. Producer Sue, I've got the link if you want to put it up on the website.
Sure thing.
If anybody wants to see it. There's the story that shows the transcript. And again, it's 148 corrections in 114 days worth of public speaking. All right.
Mhm.
So let's move on to Intel's chip losses and what this portends for the future of chip production. Now, don't get me wrong, I think it is scary that the US has to depend on China and Taiwan for its microchips. And I think we need to fix that. And the Federal Chips Act, provides 39 billion in tax credit and loan guarantees and outright grants to companies that want to build or expand or modernize chip manufacturing in the US that would lessen this country's dependence on those foreign-made microchips. But exactly how competitive is US chip manufacturing? Well, Intel just reported that the loss on its chip manufacturing operations in 2023 increased to $7 billion, up from a loss of $5.2 billion in 2022. Aren't those staggering numbers?
Yeah. Yeah.
Staggering.
Especially when you think there's chips in everything.
Chips and everything. And here's
everything.
They lost 5.2 in 22, and then that loss grew to 7 billion in 2023. Staggering the amount of money that Intel has been losing on making chips. And I hope that these newer chip plants they're building, which by the way won't come online for at least 3 years. That's how long it takes to build a chip plant. But I hope when they get them built with whatever modernization and robots they're going to put in, can do it more cost effectively because, can you imagine if those chip plants can only produce them at that cost, that more expensive than the chips we're buying from Taiwan? Ooh, scary.
I mean, because again, there's chips in everything.
Everything. All right. All right. You want to move on to high flying bird?
Yeah, I'm gonna guess it's some kind of a vulture bird.
It is a vulture. So, so you want to take a guess at how fly? By the way, it's called a Ruppell's, Ruppell, Ruppell's griffon vulture. You want to take a guess at how high it can fly?
30,000 feet.
37,000 feet. Now, to put that in comparison, when you're in a commercial jetliner going cross country, or you're flying to Spain, or you're flying a transatlantic, you're at 36,000 feet. Can you imagine being on a jetliner at 35,000 feet, looking out the window and seeing a vulture next to the plane?
I didn't know that vultures were known for that kind of long distance flying, but
well, what is unbelievable to me, at 37,000 feet, a human being would be dead in 30 seconds because there's no air. I mean, when people climb Mount Everest, what's Mount Everest, like 25,000 feet?
Is it that high? 20, yeah, something like that.
Well, it's a little over 20, and that's about as high as humans can go, and even that takes months and months of preparation and supplementary oxygen. There is no air at 30. Humans can't survive, and these birds are they're not lying, they're flapping their wings, they're flying, they're exerting themselves. I can't imagine looking out the window of a jetliner and seeing a vulture go by. It's just 37,000.
Yes, and Mount Everest is 29,000 feet.
Is it 29,000?
Yep.
Wow. Well, thanks for looking that up. But again, 37,000 feet is just incredible. All right. So let's talk about and again, we call this news in perspective. So you may or may not have heard about the quote alarming increase in school shootings.
No.
And here was the media's shocking headline: K through 12 shooting incidents skyrocket nationwide. Now, skyrocket is a pretty sensational headline, right?
Yeah.
So
That makes me think of something exponentially.
yes. So, and again, so so here's what they didn't tell you. So is it true? Well, it is if you include incidents like adults shooting each other at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night in a school parking lot, or the police shooting a fleeing bank robber on a school football field in December in Maine, or gang violence taking place near but not inside a school after hours. Um, so because what I did is I went and clicked on the link and I drilled down into the data, and that's what you're finding. They're counting all this stuff. Like a drug deal goes bad in a school parking lot. Boom. They call that.
Yeah, it's not a school shooting.
Well, they're counting all these things. A hunter's bullet uh in some rural school, they found a bullet hole in a window. It was a hunting bullet. They found a hunting bullet in the window of a car parked in the school parking lot during deer season. They counted that as a school shooting incident. Um, so I went through all the data and I drilled down. And if you click on the links, here's something you find. In the past 53 years, from 1970 to 2023, the database reports 2,346 people being wounded or killed by gunfire in or near a school. Not in a school, in or near a school, which is only 102 per year. That figure includes incidents such as actual or attempted suicides. So if a teacher commits suicide in his or her office or in his parked car in the parking lot, they count that as a school shooting incident.
I think of a school shooting as something like Sandy Hook or Uvalde or
The Covenant School in Tennessee,
or the school down in Florida. Like
right?
those were, in my definition, that is a school shooting.
Right, but see, that's how they like to sensationalize this. And by the way, of the 2,346 reported incidents where somebody was injured or killed, only 24% actually took place inside of a school. The rest took place outside of the school, with the largest single group, 651, occurring in the school parking lot at various hours of the day and night and various days of the week, including Saturdays and Sundays. So again, people, when you hear these sensational things about alarming increase in school shootings or shooting are skyrocketing, you need to take that with a huge grain of salt, because it is just the media trying to sensationalize much ado about nothing. Again, we have not had a school shooting. Again, if you want to define a school shooting as an incident where somebody brings a gun into a school during school hours with the intent of randomly shooting students or teachers, the last time that happened was in April of 2023, over a year ago. So again, if you hear people talking about this, oh, by the way, it was March 27th. It wasn't April. It was March of 20. It was 14 months ago, March of 2023. So if you folks hear people talking about alarming increase in school shooting, it's BS. All right. So you want to talk about the cruise that you probably don't want to go on?
Yeah, I probably don't want to go on a cruise.
All right. Well, let me read you the details here. I'm gonna open up a window on my computer here. Okay. It's called the Big Nude Boat. It's called a trip to Paradise. Paradise, Bear. It's an 11-day Caribbean leaves out of Miami, 11-day adventure. Set sail from February 3rd through Valentine's Day. This trip offers stress-free, clothes-free experience during which 2,300 passengers can roam the ship nude while out to sea. Now, they will be making landfall and port calls, and you'll have to wear clothes if you want to go onto port. But once you're out on the water, clothing will be optional. So, oh, and photos and videos will not be permitted unless all individuals being photographed give their consent. The Big New Boat is just one of the cruises offered by an organization by Bare Necessities, which is a business which says on their website, the company's been working to break down barriers against social nudity, making clothing optional vacationing a viable and acceptable option for all. So this cruise is just one of uh, several nude vacations they offer to people, to nudists. So anyway, if you know anybody might be interested, and that link will be on our website.
I
The
mean,
11
generally speaking, like I said, I'm just not a fan of cruises, period.
All right. All right. So let's go on to the California Bullet Train. So from the Billy Joel song, Moving Out, the line is that all you get for your money? So let's flash back to 2008 when the California Department of Transportation promised that a new bullet train project would provide rail service that would cover the 350-mile distance from LA to San Francisco in just under 3 hours, be constructed at a cost of $33 billion, and be completed by 2020. Now, they promised this in 2008. 2020, that was a 12-year completion window, right? 2008 to
Mhm.
2020.
Yep.
So it is now 2024. We're 4 years past the promised completion date, and they've already spent $11 billion. But despite being more than 3 years behind schedule, you would assume that since they've spent 1/3 of that initial $33 billion budget, the project should be 33% complete, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Not quite. If you read the most recent published stories, you'll see a picture of a 1,600-foot long bridge to nowhere over the Fresno River that took, you ready for this? 3 years to complete, and along with several other smaller bridges and overpasses, accounts for the bulk of the $11 billion spent on the project to date. So what you see in this picture, you see this 1,600-foot long white concrete overpass. It's supposed to be a railroad overpass. There are no train tracks. No train tracks leading up to it. No train tracks leading away from it. It's just a concrete overpass over this little creek in the middle of nowhere. And that's all that and a couple other little ones. They've spent 11 billion, and that's all they've done in 2008 to what's 2008 to now four. That's 16 years. They built a couple of bridges in 16 years. So let's fast forward to the present. So where are we now? No trains are running. The new targeted completion date is now the year 2100. The projected route has grown to more than 500 miles, and the new current projected cost is 133 billion, more than 4 times the original 33 billion. And by the way, that works out to $266 million per mile in construction costs and does not include the operating costs, maintenance costs, and interest expense on the bonds that have been sold to help finance the project. And Biden talks about creating a network of high-speed rail across the entire, a national high-speed rail network. Can you imagine what, based on California, how long that would take and how much it would cost?
You know, we were just talking about this the other day about so middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania to New York City. You can take the train and it's about a 5-hour train ride. Now, to put that into perspective, now that's old-fashioned train. Not, I want to say old-fashioned train, but that's traditional train, Amtrak, traditional Amtrak
Right.
train. You can drive to New York City in a car. If there was no traffic, you could do it in 3.5 hours, but let's be real, with traffic, it's probably
Right.
closer to 4 hours. So doing it by train with a bunch of stops, and now I'm talking traditional train, it's only an hour longer and it's 200 miles. So wasn't this bullet train supposed to be?
Well, yeah, and I did the math on the bullet train. The bullet train, by the way, they say the bullet train could, do 150 miles an hour, but it's going to make stops. It's going to stop in every city. If you're going like New York to LA, it's going to stop. It has to slow down and stop and pick up and discharge, and it has to speed up. New York to LA on a bullet train would be 22 hours.
Yeah.
22 hours. Now you can do it in 4.5 on an airplane.
Yeah.
So even if it was free, if I said to you, you can go New York to LA free on a bullet train, or you can pay you can pay $180 to get there on an airplane. Would you
In
take
4
the free
hours.
train?
No, because you know what? My time is worth something.
Exactly.
You
And
know,
what do you
I pay something, for my time.
Yeah, you eat, or you're gonna not have to shower. You're not gonna shower. Where you're gonna sleep, and that you're gonna sleep upright in that bench seat. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. Even if it was free, nobody's gonna ride New York to LA on a bullet train.
Yeah,
All
because
right,
again, my time is worth money.
all right. Hey, how much time we got?
You got about 10 minutes.
Well, good. All right, we're going to finish up here, but I'm going to play a little more. So we're going to talk about our taxpayer relief shots, and we normally call them taxpayer relief shots. Um, by the way, actually, there's one more thing if I can fit it in here. Hang on. Hang on. Let me see. I had one more thing I can sneak in. I think I can sneak it in. If I can find it. I debated putting this in, and I decided not to. But now that we have time, if now I can find it. By the way, have you seen these cakes that people decorate to look like packages and
Yeah.
Amazon packages and whatnot?
Yeah.
Oh, here's a little trivia for you. What's the only state capital in the United States that doesn't have a McDonald's?
I don't know.
You want to take a wild guess? I mean, you think,
Alaska,
nope.
Hawaii. I'm thinking it's got to be some.
You don't think it's Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, one of those faraway
Those would
places?
be my next guesses.
Try Montpelier, Vermont.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I've been to
Wilderness.
Montpelier. I've been to Montpelier, nothing there. Um, so
When I go to Vermont, I tend to spend my time in Rutland or Stowe.
okay. Yeah, you're a skier, right? You used to ski
Yeah.
quite a bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
That's why I
right.
spend all my time in places like Rutland, Vermont.
All right. Oh, by the way, in the Houthis, any of these people that have been expelled, these colleges, the Houthis in Yemen have offered them a free tuition at the Houthi-run university. Uh,
I feel so horrible for these people you work so hard to get through 4 years of college, whether it's your bachelor's or, some of these are, have earned their master's or PhDs and they can't celebrate.
yeah, they're not going to have a graduation to attend. Yes, that's just so sad. All right. So let me move on to anyway. So back to taxpayer relief shot, and here's the sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida, explaining why he calls them taxpayer relief shots. Here we go.
Somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully, you'll save the taxpayers money.
And what he's referring to is if a thug is arrested, first thing he's going to get a court-appointed attorney, which comes out of the taxpayer's pocket. And then he's going to be prosecuted by a district attorney. And of course, you're paying the salary of the district attorney. And if he gets sentenced to 10 years in jail, well, a year in jail is 75 to 80,000 a year. So by the time you're done with the trial and 10 years in jail, you're up to $1 million. So the sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida is absolutely correct. But now I want to move on to two quotes by Sheriff Grady Judd, who's going to be going to tell us about our taxpayer relief shot. And here's two from Sheriff Grady Judge of Polk County, Florida.
But we have received information on social media that some of the criminals were going to take their criminal conduct into the neighborhoods. I would tell them, if you value your life, you probably shouldn't do that in Polk County, because the people of Polk County like guns. They have guns. I encourage them to own guns, and they're going to be in their homes tonight with their guns loaded. And if you try to break into their homes to steal, to set fires, I'm highly recommending they blow you back out of the house with their guns.
All right, and we have one more from Sheriff Grady Judge before we get to these most recent one here.
I would highly suggest that if a looter breaks into your home, comes into your home while you're there to steal stuff, that you take your gun and you shoot him. You shoot him so that he looks like grated cheese.
All right, so now with that as a backdrop, by the way, have you ever heard this thing? Some people, they claim to be sovereign citizens. Have you ever heard that?
They're ridiculous.
Yeah, they claim, well, I'm a sovereign citizen. I don't recognize the authority of the United States government or your police department. I'm an independent sovereign. I'm not subject to the laws of your state, whatever. Well, this is from Florida, where two police officers stopped the guy, and when they approached him, he starts going on about being a sovereign citizen. So, and here's what happened. And by the way, we've always had this thing about DRT. It's not, what's DRT stand for?
Dead right there.
Dead right there. Well, Sheriff Grady Judge tonight gives us a new acronym, and it's going to be called GYD. And you can figure out what GYD stands for. Here we go.
Good evening, Josh. Well, Deputy Smith has been moved out of the ICU, but Lieutenant Anderson still in critical condition. The sheriff says that he narrowly escaped death because projectile was lodged between his heart and spine. And tonight we're learning much more about the man who pulled the trigger.
And he shot my deputies, and then we killed him. Graveyard death.
Tonight, Sheriff.
Did you hear that? Hang on. Did you hear what he said?
No.
I'm going to back it up. Listen to what he said. This is our new acronym, GYD. Here we go. I'm going to back up.
Josh, well, Deputy Smith has been moved out of the ICU, but Lieutenant Anderson still in critical condition. The sheriff says that he narrowly escaped death because projectile was lodged between his heart and spine. And tonight we're learning much more about the man who pulled the trigger.
And he shot my deputies, and then we killed him. Graveyard death.
Graveyard dead.
To the deadly shootout that left 2 deputies in critical condition and a suspect dead.
He had to know that was coming. There was a legion of deputies around him trying to get him to cooperate.
In a news conference today, the sheriff identifying the suspect as a Moorish sovereign citizen who went by the name Kamak Elbey with ties to Fresno, California. The sheriff says Elbey's radicalization increased over the last 3 years.
These folks that are Moorish and some of these other citizens, as they call themselves, have been violent toward law enforcement. And then they give you a quote like, I am not subservient to the laws of the United States or the state of Florida.
Deputies found Elbey in a car at a park after hours and tried to approach him, but he wouldn't cooperate. That's when his resistance to commands escalated to violence, shooting Deputy Craig Smith twice in the arm, striking Lieutenant Chad Anderson near his heart.
He was fractions of an inch from either being paralyzed from the chest down or killed if it had gone into his heart.
Meanwhile, the sheriff went on to say that the suspect attended Fresno State and studied business at one point in time, but that's where he became radicalized. He also told us that his mother plans to visit with the deputies and apologize for her son's actions. Reporting live in Polk County, Lenny Sue Paul, 8 on your side.
So what do you think of Graveyard Dead?
Yeah, that's a new one. And these people that don't, these sovereign citizens, but yet they're driving on our roads that our tax dollars, pay for. So if that's the game you want to play, then you can't have any of the joys of our American life.
And what's the old saying? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yep.
Yep. All right. Anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Nope.
All right. Well, then I want to thank all of you who listen to this podcast for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day to listen to me ramble on about things I find of interest and importance. And I hope you found those topics as interesting and important as I did. And if so, hope you continue to listen to this podcast in the weeks and months to come. Producer Susan, in the next couple of days, will get some of those story links up on the website. So if you want to see some of those materials you heard me talk about, you can find them on the Jerzee Joe website at JerzeeJoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey, Jerzee, JerzeeJoe.com. If you want to email me with a comment, question, or suggested show topic, you can do that just by sending me an email to joe@JerzeeJoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey with a RZEE. And with that, Producer Susan, if you've got nothing else to add, I will talk to you next week.
All right.
I'll talk to you then. Take care. Bye-bye.